High up in the Paphos district, close to the wild and verdant Paphos forest, Vouni Panayia's vineyards range from 800 to 1,100 meters and are planted with some of the island's more obscure, but growing in quantity, native varieties such as Morocanella, Basilissa, Promara and Yanoudi, to name but a few. Bush vines are their normal canopy, and their vinous experimentation ranges from steel to clay, from protective to skin-fermented orange wines. Anything is possible here, and the wines are incredibly characterful and exciting. So I'm with Yannis Kyriakidis, who's the eldest brother of a clan of how many?
We are three brothers.
Pavlos, Petros, and you have a sister?
No.
No sister?
Just boys, three boys.
Three boys, and your father, Andreas. And this is the winery of Vouni Panayia, and we're high up in the hills of the Paphos district, vineyards between 800 and 1,050 meters.
Yeah, the peak is up here.
And we're on limestone, and on the way here we saw volcanic soil, we saw schist, we saw limestone, we saw chalk. It's a real mixture of different soils you have here.
It's our area is very rich in calcareous soils. Typically we have the first layer is very rich mainly with limestone, and then we have the second layer that is there is much clay. That is very helpful for us for our grapes, since everything up here is dry farmed, so it's very helpful in terms of not to stress the vines from lack of water. So clay has the capacity to maintain the humidity, and that's why it's a combination. Actually, the resistance of these grapes, of the indigenous grapes of Cyprus, with the high altitude and the high component of clay, that keep the grapes in very good conditions.
But what's so interesting, and we were just discussing this a little earlier off camera, is that we're in a mixed blend vineyard here. So we're in a vineyard with Mavro, Xynisteri, but there are different genotypes, different clones of Mavro here, and we still don't yet know what all their different properties are, because this Mavro down here is quite stringy and spun out a bit like Yanoudi, where there's been a failure in the flowering. This one here has quite big bunches.
Bigger bunches, bigger berries.
A bit like a bunch of table grape Mavro. And here we have Xynisteri, but even the Xynisteri looks different. The bunches here are very large and it's quite prolific, but other bunches I've seen are a real mixture. How do you know which particular genotype works best where you are? Have you conducted studies yet?
Fortunately, there are not, let's say, official researches. It's just our empirical observation. So as a winery, we have a history of 35 years, and also the tradition of our family goes even more back in the years. So we know we can notice the differences of the different biotypes by observation. And yes, we know that for some specific biotypes are more proper for example, for Mavro, for rosé winemaking or red winemaking. So that's how we settle things. And of course, as you noticed before, traditionally, our ancestors, our grandfathers and great-grandparents used to co-plant all the local grapes together. It was mainly Mavro.
Yes.
Usually for our area, Mavro was around 90 to 92% of the whole vineyard.
They made a field blend.
Yeah, then it was Xynisteri, 5 to 7%. And then all other grapes, the more rare grapes, Spurtico, Promara, Morocanella.
Which leads us on to you and your, I suppose, focus on indigenous varieties. You have only autochthonous varieties. So let's go through them. You have Xynisteri, of course. You have Promara, recently welcome back from obscurity. You have Canella. You have Morocanella. You have Aspri Fraula, aka
Basilissa,
Zaousis, yes. And
we have Spurtico.
You have Spurtico, which was always a pollinator, but now it's a grape in its own right.
It's a grape to work with and to focus on it, as all the indigenous grapes, I believe.
Yeah.
what we see is that all of these grapes have a high potential, and what is interesting is that are very unique grapes are very different even between each other. So Espurtico, for example, it will give you very different results compare it with Promara or Xynisteri or Vasilissa. So we can have the indigenous grapes give us the opportunity to have a complete portfolio of different aromas and tastes.
And on the black grape front,
We have
it's
Mavro,
equally exciting. You have Mavro.
Maratheftico and Iannoudi.
Yeah. So you haven't yet got Ophthalmo.
Not yet, not yet. We are experimenting with it, but not yet something official.
This is a remarkable place because whilst we're pretty high up and we're on limestone, the solar radiation is very impressive.
Yeah, there is.
I'm wearing a hat. I'm a bald man. I need a hat on a day like this. But it's the ripening effect of this solar radiation must be quite something.
Yeah, I think we are quite lucky because since Cyprus is a Mediterranean island, we have the full effect of this climate, so we have plenty of sunshine.
Yeah.
But at the same time, due to the high altitude, we have dry climate. We don't have high levels of humidity.
No.
We have cooler temperatures that permit us to have slower maturations for our grapes and better accumulation of these all these noble elements that are required to produce something of good quality. And of course, the main factor are these grapes, the indigenous grapes.
They're tough.
Yeah, they are very resistant, very well adapted.
Particularly this, look at the Xynisteri.
Yeah.
This is not your vineyard, this is a neighbouring vineyard that was just convenient for us to walk into, but it could be yours in terms of the look of the place, couldn't it? But they've actually controlled it. They've done a little bit of hedging here. But Xynisteri is so rugged, it sits there really fastidious and stiff.
Yeah, it stands, it's very resistant. As all of the grapes, also all the indigenous grapes are very resistant, and you can see it how proud it stands, green there, without a drop of water.
Yeah.
Everything up here is not irrigated.
But they're so fecund and prolific. I mean, look at this. It's just going for a walk.
Yeah.
There's this gnarly old vine, and most of the vines up here are what, 70, 80, 100 years old. And you were saying that when they're younger, even when they're 30, 40 years old, they're called...
yeah, they call them phyto. That means
fetus.
young plant.
Yeah, very young.
So even up to 40 years, the people of the region used to call them phyta, young plants.
So here we have radiation, we have wind, we have health in the vine canopy. We have cool nights because we're high up. We're off the main massif, obviously. At Troodos it gets very cold at night, but even here it goes down by what, 15 degrees or more?
Yeah, it's around 13 to 15 degrees difference between night and day temperature.
So you have a good retention of acidity and the vines can relax a bit.
Yeah, and also due to the fact of this of the limestone, we can have very good levels of pH. It's mainly, we have mainly lower pHs than higher acidities, but that helps us to have this effect of the acidity, this refreshing effect, and the higher aromatic intensity and this minerality, characteristic minerality in our wines.
Yeah, yeah. This has got marine fossils in it. It's the first one I pick up. So this was a shallow sea, I suppose, this part of Cyprus.
Yeah, most probably, because here is considered as let's say outskirts of the Troodos mountain.
Yanni, before we taste, I think people would like to know your background and why you speak Italian.
Okay, so yeah, and my whole life, let's say, is somewhere here in the winery. So I was born in 1987, the year of the establishment of the winery. So since a young boy, I always knew that I wanted to become a winemaker. And when I was 18 and when I was examining the possibilities on where to study and which philosophy, let's say, it's more close to us. So yeah, we chose with my brother Pavlos to go in Italy, in Tuscany, in the University of Florence, and to study about viticulture and enology.
All taught in Italian?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a slight problem for you.
It was a big problem at the beginning.
Yeah.
But slowly, you know, we get adapted, and it was a very good experience in general. Yeah, it was, and also it's a language, Italian, it's a language that is, let's say, open doors to new information about wine making, viticulture. Yes. So it's a useful tool also for us until now.
Now, what have we got here? We've got something from your ordinary range. Mm-hmm. What do you call it? Ordinary is kind of damning
from
it.
Our classic line.
The classic line. And this is what people know. Uh-huh. Although now, the last 3-4 years, you've been producing these microvinifications, and you usually produce about 6 a year, don't you? 6 microvinifications.
It depends from the year. Okay. Usually it's 7 to 9
7 to
wines.
9, okay. Yeah. Experimenting with clay, with your old pitharia, with cement. Do you experiment with that as well, with concrete?
The idea behind this project is to experiment and to apply different protocols, both in vineyards and then in the winery, with our local grapes. Unfortunately, there are not any researchers from the state or any university for our local grapes, so we are
trying... Do everything yourself.
Yeah. We want to see how these grapes perform in different conditions, and if it's possible to, let's say, to find the optimum way how to express their full typicity and, of course, our terroir.
So we have one of your microvinifications from 17, the woman in the wine press, and this is Morocanella, which is a vine, a very vigorous vine that produces slightly sort of cinnamony character, doesn't it? It's spicy. And how was this made?
Yeah, so that's 2017 vintage. 100% Morocanella. So here we have a steel tank fermentation, wild fermentation in the steel tank. The temperature is controlled, but is not very low in order to have a more complex result. And then we have, after the fermentation, we have a permanent on its own lease. It was for 6 months for this specific year.
You can feel it. It has a really sort of chalky, whetstone flavor and feel to it.
Yeah. Morocanella as a variety is quite new to us. We started, that's the first year that we started working with it. So it seems that it's quite mineral as a variety. It has very high levels of acidity, low pHs.
Great acidity. It's also changed. I've had this a couple of times before. When it was fresh, it was very cinnamony. Canella, what is canella? Is that
cinnamon. Yeah.
It had that. Now it's much more lemon juice. It's got a very citrusy character to it. That's delicious. That's a really good food wine, I think.
Yeah. I think all of the 8 active grapes of Cyprus are able to produce gastronomic wines, especially if these grapes are grown in high altitudes and have these high acidities that gives the bone and this freshness to the wine, are quite good also are quite age-worthy also.
So tell me about Maratheftico. Why is Maratheftico so important to you?
Okay, Maratheftico...
And this is your classic range.
Yeah, that's Barbayannis, that's how it's called, 2017 vintage.
I forgot myself.
So yeah, Maratheftico is considered as the noble red grape of Cyprus. It's a grape with high tannins, high acidity, nice intense aromas. It's mostly flowers, rose or violets, red fruits, So yeah, I think it's a wine, it's a grape that it's also quite resistant in the vineyard. It's a wine that
it's difficult to grow.
Unfortunately, yes.
The dioecious or dioecious.
Yeah. It
so
has
needs to be pollinated.
Yeah, and that's what we were discussing before. All of the plantations we have of Maratheftico are co-plantations. We try to improve or to solve, if it's possible, this problematic performance. So we plant Maratheftico with Spurtico, Xinisteri, Morganella, every possible combination anyway, to see if we can improve things. Yeah, Maratheftico for me is a great variety.
And it's very much a wine of terroir. You see, it performs very differently according to where it's planted. Earlier on our travels, we were going on this wine safari in our Land Rover, and we came across some Maratheftico that was covered in grapes, which is unusual because it's difficult to pollinate it. You need other varieties around it to pollinate it. And it looked very vigorous as well. And yet, Maratheftico can be difficult to pollinate. It can look a bit stringy. But it's a tough old grape. You can understand why in years gone by, the villagers kind of neglected it and put it into a field blend.
Yeah, it was like used in the field blend with Mavro and the other more rare grapes.
Yeah. What I like about this is the bitter cherry or sour cherry aroma. It's very delicate, but on the palate, it's anything but delicate. It's a big, expansive wine. That's pretty chunky.
Yeah, it's quite bold, 9 tannins, high acidity.
Yeah.
That's Maratheftico from the higher altitudes of our area. It's a typical Maratheftico from of the region, this one. Of course, we have, regarding the vinification, we start with maceration and fermentation in the still tank, and then we continue with partly maturation of the wine in oak.
A little bit of new wood.
It's mostly used barrels, but we have also a part is used for new barrels.
A bit of creaminess.
And yeah, the whole philosophy regarding winemaking is to express the character of the varieties. So we try not to hide this character by any measure, with any tool. Even this is called batonnage or oak or anything else.
You want the grape front of stage. And this is what people want. They want wines that work well with food. And the way Greeks or Hellenes eat, there's so many different flavors. You need wines that can stand up to all those flavors. Yannick, thank you very much.
It was a great pleasure.
It was great fun. We had such a good time. And you can't see the cameramen right now, but we had a great time in the vineyard today. It was so pretty. Cheers. Yamas.
Cheers.
So we've journeyed around quite a lot of Cyprus on our so-called wine safari. We've tasted a number of the native grapes. We've spoken to winemakers about their various innovations in the vineyard and in the winery. We've gone to the highest vineyards in Europe, and we've learned a great deal. I come here all the time, and I've learned so much. The question is, where to now for Cyprus? There's so much change, but I think we can be assured that Cyprus wine is in a good place. See you soon on your Cyprus wine journey. Enjoy it.